Shivasakandvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandha Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Panchakalpatarubhyascha Vipasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Om Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivendanta Swami Prabhupada Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Sitadhine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Guru Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Guru Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Guru Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Guru Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavara Girivardhana Jaya Gopi Janavara Girivardhana Jaya Gopi Janavara Girivardhana Janavara Girivardhana Soranandana Chajandaranjana Yasoranandana Chajandaranjana Soranandana Chajandaranjana Soranandana Bhugatira Vanachari Yamunadira Vanachari Yamunadira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jadihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jadihari Gopi Janavara Girivardhana Jaya Gopi Janavara Girivardhana Yasodanandana Ajajandarana Sodanandana Ajajandarana Sodanandana Ajajandarana Sodanandana Ajajandarana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Arati Vanachari Jagannatha Madhava Kunjabina Jagannatha Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. So nice to see you. Glad to see you together. But Srila Prabhupada said that when we're chanting Hare Krishna, we're all packed up tight. Even we may be spread all over the world. When we're chanting, we're all together. He said that it doesn't matter if we're separated physically. If we're chanting, there's no separation. It's a nice thought during these times. So, actually, I was asked to give this class, and they said I could give it on anything I wanted. So naturally, that made me completely mental. What do I speak about? Usually, I have a project. So I went round and round, and finally, I decided that I would read these beautiful verses that are just before the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. And they're very heartwarming. They're very reassuring. Krishna's telling Arjuna, telling us how just come to me. I'll take care of you. Just trust me. And I'll look after everything. So they're very wonderful. And I thought I could use to hear them again, and hopefully we'll all derive some benefit. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'm actually reading Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, text 55, and I'll read up till 62, I guess it is. And I'll read the verses for the verses and purports, for 61 and 2. But these first verses, so we're reaching the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita, and these different themes that we've heard throughout the Bhagavad Gita are coming back again. That there is transcendence. We are spiritual beings, and at the same time, Krishna always acknowledges that we're still here in the material world. We're Jiva Bhuta. Where Jiva Bhuta means it's this combination of matter and spirit, that we are spiritual beings ultimately, and that's our ultimate reality, which he's always urging us to try to come to understand. And at the same time, he acknowledges that we have material bodies. So Jiva Bhuta means this kind of this composite personality that we're dealing with, that this spiritual being in a material body, and having a particular type of body with a particular physical makeup, and thinking in certain ways, having certain proclivities, feeling like I have to do this, I have to do that. We all in these material bodies, we always have these certain things that drive us, that I have to do this, I have to do that. So Krishna acknowledges that. He never encouraged Arjuna to not be a Kshatriya. But he encouraged him to do this for me. And the ultimate, the ultimate aim through all these activities, the beauty of all of them is that we can serve Krishna in whatever circumstance. We can serve Krishna, and we can get closer to Krishna with every step we take, with with every breath, everything we do in our life can bring us closer to Krishna, despite being in this material world and undergoing the stress and the anxiety that we feel almost constantly. Nevertheless, even in this situation, we can take shelter of the Lord and reach Him. So, so this first verse, text number 55, these are famous verses. Bhaktimam abhijanati yavanyas jasmi tatvataha. Tato mam tatvato gyatva vishite tad anantaram. Krishna says, one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So this is of course theme throughout the Bhagavad Gita, that we can only know Krishna through developing our love for him, because Krishna is never subject to our scrutiny. Krishna can never be put under the microscope or examined, or even by reading the Vedas, it said Vedeshu Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakta. Even if we study the Vedas to try to understand transcendence, or even understand who we are, really, it's practically impossible. Durlabham. Because that's all revealed. Who we are ultimately, what we are, that we're spiritual beings, not these material bodies. Certainly who Krishna is, what the spiritual world is like. Those are not things that we can comprehend with our little brains. They're just beyond the purview. In Mahabharata, it's also stated that these things that are beyond the purview of our senses, that's the definition of inconceivable. That which the senses cannot touch, that's by definition inconceivable. Our mind and senses can't touch them. So all of these things are beyond us, but Krishna, out of his kindness, out of his mercy, out of his causeless mercy, he can reveal himself. And that's the only way we can understand him, is when and if he chooses to reveal himself. And he reveals himself to those who love him. This is natural, just like we also don't want to reveal any things about ourselves to people we don't trust. We only want to tell confidential truths about ourselves to people that we feel love us, who care about us, who have our best interests at heart. So Krishna's psychology is natural, and this also comes from Krishna. So he says that I reveal myself to those who develop love for me. And then he says, though engaged in all kinds of activities, my pure devotee, under my protection, reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. So Arjuna is, of course, he's perplexed. How can I fight this war? But even in such a circumstance, Krishna says, you can take shelter of me, and you can work for me, and you can be under my protection, even under this circumstance. And even working in this way, you'll reach me. So he says, in all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. And then this is one of my favorite verses in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Machchita Sarvadurgani Mat Prasada Tarishyasi. If you just become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditional life by my grace. And then, what is it? Mat Prasada Tarishyasi. Atta Chaitvam Ahankaran, the Shoshasi Vinakshasi. Often what Krishna takes the opposite. He explains the positive and then he explains the negative back to back. So here he's doing the same thing. And he says, so the opposite of becoming conscious of Krishna, aware of Krishna, seeing Krishna in our life, wanting to be with Krishna. The opposite of that is working through false ego. Atta Chaitam Ahankara. Nashoshasi, not hearing me, Vinakshasi, you will be lost. So this is the general situation in the material world, is that we have these overwhelming material bodies. This material body is just overwhelming for the little jiva. We're seated in this body, and we're just overwhelmed by it. The experiences were just like the whole material world is kind of like a slideshow or vision that's on the brain, and we're constantly absorbed in what we're seeing. Or what's this? Oh, this is happening. Oh my God, this is going to happen. Oh, I hope this doesn't happen. Maybe this will happen. So this constant slideshow of material energy is being projected on our brain, and we're just watching that. And then we've got our own bodies, especially as you get older, watching your body fall apart. It's not a lot of fun. But so the body is so overwhelming for the conditioned soul. We can easily just be caught up in that false ego of, thinking I'm this body, this is what there is, this is the world. This is what life is. And in that circumstance, we don't hear Krishna. We don't hear Krishna. We hear our mind, we hear the dictations of so many people, so many different things, but we don't hear Krishna. So he says, Nashoshasi, if you don't hear from me, you will be lost. So, of course, in the 7th chapter, we're reminded, what does he say? Maya sakta manaparta yogam yunjan manashraya asamshayam samagramam yata gyasyasi touch trinu. Same thing, just hear from me, Arjuna. How by practicing this yoga, this bhakti yoga, you can become conscious of me. You can, your mind can become attached to me in so many different ways, through devotional service, through worshiping the deity, through chanting the holy name, through devotees. It's also good to become attached to devotees. It's our good fortune if we're attached to devotees. In Bhagavatam, it's said that attachment for material things brings the soul down, but that same attachment, when applied to devotees, moksha dwaram apavitam, it opens the door for liberation. So Krishna is saying that if you hear from me, just hear from me. It's like we're reading Bhagavad Gita, we're reading Shrimad Bhagavatam, we're reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, just hearing from Krishna. And our faith is, why are we doing that? Because we have faith that if I hear from Krishna, I'll become a realized soul. I'll solve all of my problems. That's actually the definition Krishnadas Kaviraj gives of faith, that Shraddha Sabde Vishwas Kahi Sudrida Nisjoy, Krishna Bhakti Kaile, Sarvakama Krita Hoy, that faith means that if I just can serve Krishna somehow or other, everything will be okay. Because everything is okay. It's okay already. We don't die. None of this phantasmagoria, none of this horror show of the material world is actually real. It's everything's already okay. We don't die. Krishna emphasizes that. It's already okay. Simply, we have to wake up. Just like Srila Prabhupada gave the example that if you're asleep and you're being eaten by a tiger in a dream, that's certainly horrible, right? Oh my God, I'm being eaten by a tiger. And you wake up sweating. Well, there's only one solution for that problem. And that's to wake up. You don't stay asleep and try to fight the tiger, right? The only solution to the problem of material life is to wake up. And that can be done by hearing from Krishna, because as we hear from Krishna, he appreciates that. He appreciates, oh, this jiva is pulling away from his normal life and taking the time to hear about me. So I want to thank you all for being wonderful devotees and taking the time to hear about Krishna, and also having the faith that maybe I'll tell you something about Krishna. So thank you so much. So, but Krishna appreciates that effort. He very much appreciates it. And he acts from within our heart, and he cleanses us. And we become conscious of him. And as we become conscious of Krishna, as he says here, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditional life by my grace. So this is his promise. So we can hear from him. Yeah, just one other point on this hearing. In the 11th canto, Shrimad Bhagavatam, and what's called Uddhava Gita, where Krishna is speaking to Uddhava, he says, what is it? No, that's not it. Can't think of the Sanskrit right now. Oh, yadrichaya matkatado. If someone becomes very, very fortunate, if someone is very fortunate, what's the symptom of that fortune? Matkatado, my kata, hearing about me, hearing about Krishna, Krishna speaking personally to Uddhava. And he says, when someone becomes very fortunate, they develop faith. Jatu Shraddha, this faith is awakened. Shraddha, they awaken faith in hearing about me, in hearing about Krishna. And he says, Nanirvino nati sakto bhakti yoga sasitita. And if they're not too attached, and if they're not too averse, such a person can take to devotional service. So this is actually Krishna's definition of who can take up devotional service. And the primary qualification is that they develop faith, jatu shraddha. Their faith in hearing about Krishna is awakened. And by that faith, their spiritual life begins. So Krishna is also affirming this here, that if you just hear from me, if you become conscious of me, then by my grace, you'll pass over all of the obstacles of conditional life. And then he says, opposite, but if you don't work in such consciousness and act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Then the next verse, 659, if you do not act according to my direction and do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to engage in warfare. We've actually seen this we have this we have a particular nature. I know in my own situation, I came to Krishna consciousness in 1975, and I was a musician. And in my mind, I was giving up music to become a monk, which I did. And then I found out, hey, these monks just like sing and play music all day. Well, that works for me. But anyway, but more or less, anyway, I gave up my little budding musical career, and I was, engaged in devotional service. We did, of course, a lot of kirtan, but we were distributing books. I managed a temple for a number of years and ran a restaurant and did all kinds of stuff. And after, 25, 30 years of that, all of a sudden I had this compelling urge that I had to, create music and produce music. So I was in, and then the whole time I was kind of thinking, why am I doing this? Nobody's asking me to do this. Nobody even wants me to do this. So anyway, I'm just saying that my experience is that we have this nature, even after years of devotional service, the nature doesn't go away. It's so pervasive. And Krishna is telling this to our Arjuna also. You have this nature, so if you think you're going to just renounce and sit under a tree and meditate, forget it. This is Arjuna, and as Prabhupada often says, who are we in comparison to Arjuna? He didn't, he would decline to practice yoga. So, because he knew, this is who I am. So this is an important part of our growing up, I guess you could say, in devotional service, is kind of, we want to be devotees of Krishna, we want to love Krishna, we want to surrender to Krishna. But where we're at, we're not here, but perhaps we're here, or perhaps we're here. I was having this conversation with a devotee the other day that my experience is that we begin devotional service and we become excited and our goals are so high. I mean, you hear about Radha, Krishna, Leela, and all of these things. And we've got such high goals, and at some certain point, and perhaps we think we're there. I know, in the 70s, we all thought we'd be like pure devotees in a couple weeks, it's like pretty soon. And then, 40, 50 years later, well, I don't know, maybe it'll take a little longer. So, so we become faced with the fact that we still have this material body and we have this nature, and it actually takes time practicing devotional service to kind of understand, where we're at and how do I proceed from here? I'm not here, I have to start here because that's where I am and proceed from here. So that's, I think that's part of progressing in devotional service. And it's interesting, Krishna's giving this similar instruction here to Arjuna in the final closing chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that you're not going to be able to sit down and meditate or do something else. You're Arjuna for now, for the time being. You're in this Arjuna body, and you have to act in this way. And if you don't do that, for me, then you'll do it anyway. But you'll be doing it for Maya. You'll be doing it for some kind of illusory name and fame, or for something else. But you won't get the benefit of doing it from me. So Krishna is instructing us here to engage our nature, to engage who we are in his service, and offer whatever we have, whatever it is, whoever we are, offer that to him. And he'll accept it. He says, if you engage in this way, then through all circumstances in life, I'll protect you, and I'll gradually bring you to me. So now we're getting to the verses I wanted to read today. So So this is text 61. So Krishna says, Ishvara Sarvabhutana Hridesher Junatishtati Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantra Rudani Maya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. So Krishna's never left us. He's there within our heart, and it's actually he who's directing our actions. Whether we want to serve him or not want to serve him, whatever it is, he's making those arrangements, and we're seated on this machine made of this material energy. So this amazing vision of ourselves to just be in this body, we're conscious beings, but Krishna's directing. Krishna's always been directing. He's never not been directing. And it's our job to become aware of him. So Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Arjuna was not the supreme knower, and his decision to fight or not to fight was confined to his limited decision. Prabhupada makes this point many times. He says, actually, we don't know what's the best for us. No conditioned soul actually knows the best for us. So we need to get higher direction. If we're just guided by illusory energy, we cannot possibly know, what will be the outcome in every circumstance. We may calculate in so many ways, but we can't know. So we need to take shelter of Krishna's higher intelligence and be directed by him. Lord Krishna instructed that the individual soul is not all in all. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, or he himself, Krishna, as the localized super soul, sits in the heart, directing the living being. So he's directing us. How he's directing, that depends on us. How he's directing us, that depends on us. So he says, after changing bodies, the living entity forgets his past deeds, but the super soul, as the knower of past, present, and future, remains the witness of all his activities. Krishna knows all of our past lives, everything we've done. Inconceivable. Therefore, all the activities of living entities are directed by this super soul. The living entity gets what he deserves and is carried by the material body, which is created in the material energy under the direction of the super soul. As soon as the living entity is placed in a particular type of body, he has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. A person seated in a high-speed motor car goes faster than one seated in a slower car, though the living entities, the drivers, may be the same. Similarly, by the order of the super soul, material nature fashions a particular type of body to a particular type of living entity, so that he may work according to his past desires. This is interesting. I'll just finish this. The living entity is not independent. One should not think himself independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The individual is always under the Lord's control. Therefore, one's duty is to surrender. And that is the injunction of the next verse. So, so this is our situation, that we're in this material body. We've already created this body by our past activities, and we've got, and those activities were directed by desires, and the desires come with us. Maybe you've noticed how we come into this world with particular sets of desires. Have you ever wondered about that? Why? Like I knew a person who was completely driven to become a pilot. You know, his whole life was how he could become a pilot. And I never ever thought about it. I never, you know, why did he have that desire? Why do I have different desires? So these are what we carry with us. Is this, you know, we want this, we don't want that. We're driven by these desires, and Krishna knows. And therefore we've gotten a particular body according to our karma, according to our activities. And here we are, you know, with these sets of desires. And Krishna's just fulfilling karma. What is it? Yastvendra gopam atavendra mahosa karma. Bandhanu rupa palabhajana matanoti. Brahma Samhita says that Krishna is impartial. If you want this and you've got the requisite pious credits, here it is. You know, he's impartially ordaining. You know, you've done this, you wanted this, okay, here it is. You wanted a Mercedes, but, oh yeah, you're in the land of Mercedes. But you know, you don't have the sufficient pious activities, so, okay, you'll have to have a Ford instead. So, you know, we have the desires, we have our karma, and Krishna's just, you know, awarding these things, and he's impartial. You want this? Okay. But if somehow or other we turn to Krishna, and we raise our hand, that's what chanting Hare Krishna means, that we're raising our hand. Krishna, you know, interfere in my life. I've been going down this path for who knows how many births, and it'll just keep going. I'll just keep wanting stuff and working and trying to fulfill the desires. It's business as usual in the material world. It'll keep going on. It can keep going on eternally, practically speaking. But this chanting of Hare Krishna, this Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, means that we're raising our hand. Yeah, thank you. It means that we're raising our hand and saying, Krishna, please interfere in my life. Come into my life. Interfere with my nonsense desires. And that's the next part of that verse, that karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajan. Those who are engaged in devotional, everyone else, they're just getting, you know, they're acting, they get the results of their karma, their desires are going on. It's just the way of the material world. But those, karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajan, but those who engage in devotional service, which especially means to hear about Krishna again, to chant Krishna's name, to put this in our life, this activity, this daily activity, to take the time to hear about Krishna. I always remember, a little aside here, that Prabhupada wrote a book when he was still in India, and it was written in Bengali, and it's called Vairagya Vidya. Any of you read that book? Probably not. It's not so well known. It was written in Bengali. It was translated, and in there's one point that he makes. He says, Arjuna, just imagine, he's like on the battlefield and he's getting ready to fight. And he said, he found the time to hear Bhagavad Gita. all the armies of the world are waiting there, you know, and he found the time to hear Bhagavad Gita. And so Prabhupada says, what urgent business do we have that we cannot find the time? I always remember this. That's from that book. So somehow or other, we need to put this hearing in our life, and this, especially this chanting of Hare Krishna. This is, Prabhupada said, the most important order of the spiritual masters, to chant the holy name. And Krishna notices that we're chanting, and he interferes. Karmani nirdahati kintu chibhakti pacha. So those who are engaged in devotional service, they're also performing activities, but those activities are burning up their karma. They're diminishing their karma. They're relieving them of their karma. So this is the wonderful nature of taking to devotional service. So the Supreme Lord is still there within the heart. He's still dictating, but he dictates in a different way. He dictates in a different way how I can come to him. And he arranges things to help me become awakened and to engage in devotional service. This is how Krishna interferes with our life in that way. So this is very much wanted. So this act of turning to Krishna and hearing from him, this is surrender. This is the beginning of surrender. Surrender is a process. Takes some time. Generally, for most of us, it doesn't happen right away, but it's a process of surrendering that begins with this chanting. And gradually, we completely take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. So this next verse, then he concludes this, again, the previous one, that I'm in everyone's heart and I'm directing the wanderings. The super soul is directing the wanderings. So then he says, "Oh, Sena Bharata, surrender unto him, the super soul within. Surrender unto the super soul utterly. By his grace, you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme eternal abode. Tameva sharanam gacha, sarva bhavena bharata, tat prasada param shantim, stanam prapsyasi shashvatam." This unto him, unto the super soul, unto the Lord who is within the heart, certainly sharanam gacha, just surrender or take shelter. Krishna is saying, you can take shelter of me, you can come to me. It doesn't matter what you've been, where you've been, who you are. Krishna repeats that again and again. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. Nothing matters. You can come to me. You can take shelter of me. And he says, Sarva Bhavena, in all respects, just take shelter of me. Tat prasadat pranam shantim. By the grace of by my grace again, param shantim, you'll become supremely peaceful and happy. And stanam prapsyasi shashvatam, and you will come to my supreme abode. So this is Krishna's promise, his suggestion and his promise. A living entity should therefore surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart. And that will relieve him from all kinds of miseries of this material existence. By such surrender, not only will one be released from all miseries in this life, but at the end he will reach the Supreme God. The transcendental world is described in the Vedic literature, Rig Veda, as Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. Since all of creation is the kingdom of God. Everything material is actually spiritual. But Parampadam specifically refers to the eternal abode, which is called the spiritual sky or Vaikuntha. So we're in the abode of God, but there's a supreme abode. Actually, that abode is Goloka Vrindavan. So Krishna, Srila Prabhupada makes a very wonderful point. We'll conclude with this. In the 15th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Sarvasya Chaham Hridisana Vishto. Again, same idea. Krishna is within the heart of everyone. He's always been there. The Lord is seated in everyone's heart. So this recommendation that one should surrender unto the super soul sitting within means that one should surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna has already been accepted by Arjuna as the Supreme. He was accepted in the 10th chapter as the Param Brahma, Param Dharma. Arjuna has accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the supreme abode of all living entities, not only because of his personal experience, but also because of the evidence of great authorities like Narada, Sita, Devala, and Vyas. So also in Brahma Samhita, although we could say, well, Krishna's far away, he's in Goloka Vrindavan, but the point is, but he's present in our heart. It's Krishna who's present in our heart. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achinchina Gunar Swarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That this, it says that those whose eyes are anointed with love, they don't see super soul within their hearts, they see Shama Sundar. Yam Shama Sundaram Achinchigana Swarupam. Because he's the same Krishna. Just like when the gopis one time, they were looking for Krishna and they came across, and Krishna, to hide himself, he manifested as Narayan. So when the gopis came to see him, they saw it, they said, oh, it's Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Please accept our humble obeisances. Where's Krishna? they weren't interested in Narayan. They were just asking Narayan, where's Krishna? And then later, Srimati Radharani came, and when Krishna saw her, he couldn't maintain his form as Narayan, and he had to, in the presence of her love, he had to manifest himself as Krishna. So all of these different forms of the Lord, they're all different forms. Keshava, Drita, Narahari Rupa, they're all different forms of Krishna. So the devotee with devotion sees Krishna within his heart, not exactly the super soul. He sees Yam Shama Sundar within their heart. And we can always take shelter of Krishna. We can always be in touch with Krishna and with the other devotees through the medium of transcendental sound, through the medium of hearing and chanting, because Krishna's present. Radha and Krishna are present. They're fully present in the Mahamantra. And as we purify our hearts, as Krishna purifies our hearts, we can realize that presence and surrender fully. So, Hare Krishna. So that was what I wanted to say to you today. I hope it's all right. I don't know, what do we do now? Any direction from the assembly here?
Usually we like to give the devotees a chance to ask questions.
Okay.
So, if there are any questions, please post them in the chat. Bada Hari Prabhu, Are you able to see the chat?
I'll open it up.
Okay.
There it is.
We already have a question.
Okay.
If you like, I can read it out to you if that's easier for you.
Well, I think I can read it. You tell me if it's the same one. Thank you so much for this cool class. Well, I'm glad somebody thought it was cool. Thank you. There's one comedian, he said, the nice thing about turning 50 is you don't have to be cool anymore. So I'm way past 50. So I don't think of myself as cool, but I'm glad you did. I always wondered, who is Arjuna? Is he already in his eternal Swarup? What about Narayan and Ramananda Roy? Yeah, that's correct, that he appeared according to Gauragana Deepika. Do you know more? Thank you. Actually, I do not know more than that. Maybe somebody in the assembly does. But as far as I understand, there's different abodes in Vaikuntha. This is a little bit speculative because I haven't, well, actually not. In the what's it called? Brihad Bhagavatamrita, it makes, there's that discussion that what is the topmost abode? We hear the devotees, they all go back to Godhead. But who is it? Parikshit's mother has this question but there's different levels of devotion. People have different types of bhakti for the Lord. So I can't accept that they just all get the same abode. How can that be? There's so many different levels of devotion. So then this whole description is of all the different, abodes, going up to Ayodhya, and then, Dwarka, like that. And there's the Yadus. And so the Yadus, they have their particular eternal relationship with the Lord. And they serve him there. And they have that particular relationship. So at least according to Brihad Bhagavatamrita, then that's Arjuna's, eternal position, is to have that kind of relationship with the Lord. But it's there in the spiritual world. He also demonstrates that here, comes as a Kshatriya and does his thing. But he's always with Krishna in that particular form. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I would see it. Next question. Is that okay? I hope it's okay. Okay, we got a thumbs up. Hare Krishna, Bada Hari Prabhu. Thanks for your motivating lecture to practice Krishna consciousness all the time. Jai, I'm glad you feel motivated to practice. Yeah, we can practice all the time. We can always think of Krishna. I remember once Srila Prabhupada often speaks about this verse, Manmana Bhava Bhakto, just think of me, And sometimes he would say, you think of so many nonsense things. Why not think of Krishna? And I remember hearing that and going, yeah, why not? It's definitely better than 99.9% of what I think about, other than Krishna. Mostly disturbance. Why not think of Krishna? We can always think of Krishna. And in fact, that's Rupa Goswami's instruction, right? Is that to always think of Krishna and never forgetting. These are the two rules. Sarva Vidi Nisedasur Etayor Eva Kinkara. These are the actual rules. There's only two. always think of Krishna and never forget him. All the other rules and regulations are servants of this principle. So yeah, to think of Krishna all the time. Please tell us, what is your favorite Krishna Leela? Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Your servants, Sergey, Maria, and Mira. So thank you. I see your names there. Oh, there's so many wonderful pastimes of Krishna, but what comes to mind is in the morning, Mother Yashoda is trying to dress Krishna. And, Krishna's, being a little naughty, doesn't exactly want to be dressed, but she's saying, I just stand here. And, she's trying to dress him very nicely because it's her service. She loves Krishna. She always wants to make sure he looks just the best, which he always does. Krishna's so cool. It's described, he's going to go kill a demon, right? That's the description in Krishna book. He's going to go kill a demon, but before he does it, he'll like adjust his belt. He's like, okay, I'll just adjust my belt. Okay, no, everything's good. Now, so Krishna's just coolness personified. Anyway, so sometimes the cowherd boys, there'll be a cowherd boy that thinks, well, let me help Mother Yashoda dress Krishna. So while Mother Yashoda is dressing Krishna, he'll come and he'll try to put the ankle belts on Krishna. And, so while he's putting, he's carefully putting the ankle belts on, and I'm sure he's totally in ecstasy looking at Krishna's lotus feet. And when Mother Yashoda's not looking, Krishna looks down at the cowherd boy and just hits him over the head with his flute. Just bam, And of course, I'm sure the cowherd boy likes that too. But sometimes I think of this pastime, because, for us, we're very serious, we just take this material world very seriously. Oh my God, I have a headache. It's like everything's a big deal for us, and, oh, this happened. But for Krishna, sometimes we can think like that. It's just Krishna slapping us with his flute, Don't take this thing so seriously. Don't get all caught up in this. Just remember me. I'm slapping you. It's not so nice here. I'm just giving you a little slap. Wake up and think of me. So and notice me. I'm your friend. This little slap came from me. It's not an accident. So yeah. Anyway, so I like that pastime a lot. Krishna with Mother Yashoda and the cowherd boys. I heard something recently. It's find this. The gopis, they never sleep. They pretend to go to sleep and then they go out with Krishna all night, and then they come just before the break of dawn. They come home and they pretend to go to sleep and then they get up again. Krishna practically never sleeps either. But the cowherd boys, they actually go home and go to sleep. But they dream of Krishna all night long. Isn't that cool? That's what the cowherd boys do. They dream of Krishna all night long. And, this, in the morning, yeah, we'll do this. And, so they're dreaming, they're resting. Because they're boys, They're not going to be out at night. They're boys. And so they go home and they rest and they dream. But they're just dreaming of Krishna, what he's doing, and what are his activities. So thank you for asking. Those are some little thoughts about Krishna. I think we're over time here.
Yeah, a little bit, but that really doesn't matter. Thank you so much for this wonderful class. We would like to give all of the devotees attending and also you an opportunity to get a quick darshan of Lord Jagannath.
Awesome.
I will move the laptop that we're using.
Okay.
So let me know if I need to adjust the angle a little bit.
Okay. Jai Jagannath. There we go. Jai. Thank you so much. Wow. Jagannatha Swami ki jai. Jagannatha Subhadramani ki jai.
Haribo.
Jai. All glories to all the devotees. Thank you for your association. I'm so happy to Zoom that I can see you. It's the most horrible thing to give class to a camera. It's awful. So at least I can see devotees, and I'm so happy to see you. I'm happy you're safe and practicing Krishna consciousness. And I hope to see you again in person one day.
Yes.
Very soon.
Until then, I hope we can do this again. This was very, very nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Please join again.
Okay.
Leka Shravanti will contact you with a date and a time then.
Oh. Okay, that's scary. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Bhagavad Gita.